I am going to talk about democracy dollars and attacking dark money in politics.
Do you think you're being taken seriously enough?
Well, one of the things I tweeted was it's all fun and games until Andrew Yang passes you in the polls.
Who is Andrew Yang? Other than the man debate moderators turn to when they're sick of being yelled at by Bernie, it turns out he's got a pretty interesting story.
Hello and welcome. In today's episode on the Andrew Yang Policy Series, hosted by yours truly, Rashid Hill, I am going to talk about democracy dollars and attacking dark money in politics. What does Andrew Yang say about this particular policy proposal on his website? Here's what he says about the democracy dollars and attacking dark money. Money has overrun our politics, and that needs to change. Corporations and the wealthy have enough advantages without being able to influence every election by putting up millions of dollars and bending the ear of every candidate and office holder. We will return to the essence of democracy, where each person's vote is heard and treated equally. I will gladly overturn Citizens United and return the American government to its people. This would also improve policymaking as leaders can turn towards solutions instead of constantly trying to raise money for the next campaign. Let's get big money out of politics once and for all. We'll all be much better off for it. I don't love calling rich people either, nor does any sane person. Democracy dollars is the answer that Andrew Yang has proposed to get those big donors from influencing or adversely influencing the candidate into owing them a favor, basically, after they're elected. But let's talk a little bit more about that. So the big problem that Andrew Yang talks about when running for office is that you have to get money on your side and the people on your side. And these are two different things. Imagine if every American had $100 to give to their favorite candidate, then if you get 10,000 people behind you, you'd get $1 million. You could then act in the best interest of the people you represent instead of sucking up to rich people and companies. Calling rich people for money is soul crushing. We'd all be better off if politicians just needed to worry about representing the people that elected them rather than hustling for money all the time. Do you agree? It makes sense to me. So the trend over the past half century has been to allow unfettered spending in elections. This culminated in the decision made in Citizens United, allowing unlimited money to be spent by corporations in elections. It's no surprise that this has resulted in mega donors flooding the pipes of our democracy. So Andrew Yang goes on to say, because there's the Citizens United that you've heard of a couple of times already, it is about an actual case that was ruled on that concerned dark money in politics or big money that was to influence elections in politics. So corporations and the wealthy have enough advantages without being able to influence every election by putting up millions of dollars and bending the ear of every candidate and office holder. In the wake of the Citizens United ruling, and there was a lesser known case, Buckley versus Vallejo, money has flooded our political system like never before. A handful of wealthy individuals can now raise a voice louder than millions of ordinary Americans put together. The flood of money in politics has led to increased mistrust and disenchantment in our government, and rightly so. Big money in politics is far more likely to support candidates who will protect their interests of the wealthy and that elected these candidates in the first place. So obviously, Andrew Yang is looking at the big money donors as being part of the problem when it comes to being elected and being influenced to make bad decisions after you're elected. Because obviously, like Pete Buttigieg, like Warren, they have big money that have gotten them to where they are, even though sometimes they want to act like that's not true. But if you looked at the debate in LA in December, you would know um, these things tend to come out on stage. So he goes on to say, super PACs can accept unlimited contributions, and disclosure requirements allow donations to be funneled through nonprofits until they can't be traced to their original source. This is called dark money. Super PAC spending in federal elections more than doubled between 2010 and 2012. Swing states such as Pennsylvania, Florida, and North Carolina see the largest dark money spending, undoubtedly seeing their elections influenced by wealthy donors that have no ties to the state itself. We must return to the essence of democracy, where each person's vote is heard and treated equally. I will gladly push for a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United and return the American government to its people. We need to end super PACs, drown out their influence, and stop pretending that corporations have equal rights to people. Now, let me say this because many of you watching may know that there is a math pack because Andrew Yang's slogan is all over his hats and a lot of his the clothing that his site provides. Math, as an acronym, means make Americans think harder. And so, in doing so, a group of influential and people not associated with the campaign, which obviously super PACs cannot be associated with or deal with directly anybody or anything in the campaign, they've decided that, hey, Andrew Yang is the right person to get behind. We want to put our money behind him. And therefore, they're canvassing Iowa and other, early states in order to get his name out there. And so even though Andrew Yang knows about the Math Pack, he has no connection with the Math Pack. Also, there's another super PAC on the West Coast, because one is on the East Coast, one is on the West Coast, that have chosen to do the same thing. I read about a gentleman that wants to basically stop doing his regular job. He's an entrepreneur. He has his own business. His wife has their own business. And so they have two businesses. He's planning to stop working so that he can go full time. So he created a super PAC of sorts and was going out for donations as well. And like I said, these are not directly associated with the campaign. They are just enthusiasts for Andrew Yang's campaign and believe so much that he is the right candidate, one, to beat Donald Trump, and two, to be in the White House so that he can establish the policies that he has set forth here in his website. And so even though he talks about getting dark money out of the elections and utilizing the concept of democracy dollars, he is not against people that want to support a candidate without them being part of the conversation, so to speak. So understand the difference is he didn't work directly with them. Those are just donors that are actually donating their time, donating their money, and actually creating marketing and promotions and advertisements for Andrew Yang, but they're not putting money into his particular campaign as far as donations directly that are utilized by the campaign. Totally different situation. So hopefully that cleared that up a little bit. So as we move on, he also goes on to say, we need to diminish the influence that mega wealthy individuals and companies have in our elections. While we must push for a constitutional amendment to allow our campaign finance laws to properly limit the power that the top 1% have, we must act much faster to save our democratic processes. To do so, we must make it possible for all Americans to contribute to candidates they feel strongly about in order to drown out the voices of the few who can spend millions of dollars to influence our politicians. The easiest way to do this is to provide Americans with publicly funded vouchers they can use to donate to politicians that they support. Every American gets $100 a year to give to candidates, use it or lose it. These democracy dollars would, by the sheer volume of the U.S. population, drown out the influence of mega donors. Imagine running for office when every American has 100 democracy dollars. They can use those dollars to give to their favorite candidate. Just 10,000 supporters could mean $1 million for your campaign. Once elected, you could act primarily in the interest of the people you represent instead of appeasing wealthy donors and corporations. Calling rich people for money is soul crushing, and we'd all be better off if politicians only needed to worry about representing the people that elected them in the first place. It has been used in Seattle to great effect, and we can take their program national to move towards publicly funding elections. What problems is Andrew Yang trying to solve? One, under current Supreme Court jurisprudence, individuals can contribute huge amounts to influence elections and politicians. Two, amending the Constitution to prevent this or nominating judges to overturn it can take decades, and this is corrupting our democracy now. Three, money has become the dominant force in our elections as wealthy individuals and corporations increasingly demand the attention of candidates and policyholders. Four, people don't believe that their voices matter, often because they don't have meaningful access. And five, candidates and office holders spend the majority of their time fundraising rather than governing or finding solutions. So what are the goals that Andrew Yang has laid out? One, limit the influence of mega donors in our elections. Two, allow the will of the people to show through. Three, improve candidate responsiveness to the concerns of ordinary Americans. Three, that's number four, reduce corporation or corporate influence and outsized influence of the wealthy. Five, make it so that more people can run for office without having ready access to vast financial resources. Interesting. So Andrew Yang says, as president, this is what he'll do. Provide every American voter with 100 democracy dollars for each election cycle, a voucher that they can use to support candidates of their choosing. This amounts to $23 billion nationwide per election, allowing the will of the people to outfund the $6.5 billion spent on federal races in 2016, $1.6 billion of which was dark money. The next thing he would do is support a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United and Valeo, which were terrible decisions that have made our politics even more polarized. Next, eliminate super PACs and vessels for corporate intervention in campaigns. Next, appoint judges who don't believe corporations have the same rights as people. This is the Andrew Yang policy on democracy dollars and attacking dark money in politics. I hope you enjoyed this brief conversation, this brief policy proposal by Andrew Yang. And this is the Andrew Yang policy series by myself, Rashid Hill, doing my part to support Andrew Yang all the way to the White House. He is hands down the most eloquent, the most well-spoken, intelligent, and humble, yet funny person that has caught my attention in a long time. And like many others that are on Twitter and part of the Yang Gang and any supporters of Andrew Yang, even the ones that are leaving Trump and Bernie and Warren to come over to the Yang Gang, it is amazing how many times you hear somebody say, this is the first time that I've gotten this excited about a candidate running for president. This is the first time that I've donated to a candidate. This is the first time that I have participated in canvassing and campaigning for a candidate. This is how special these moments are for all of us that support Andrew Yang. He is hands down the best candidate that I've seen. In every debate, every time he has an opportunity to speak, people listen because Andrew Yang is changing the conversation about how the economics and the automation is very centric of what we should be talking about, what we should be thinking about, and what we should be preparing for. That's how we take care of our folks. That's how we take care of America. That's how we take America back to the level of expert or superiority in the world as it's been before. I am very passionate about, one, removing the corruption from the Oval Office that's currently there in 45, and being an advocate for bringing in new and fresh and valuable, as well as a person of integrity to the White House, so that America could be looked upon as a beacon of hope, um, and for people that appreciate doing the right thing, treating people fairly, and putting humanity first. I support Andrew Yang, and you should too.
We cannot rule out the possibility that as more people find out about Andrew Yang, he grows and grows, runs the table, and wins the whole thing.